Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Cameron and today I'm going to be sharing how I cut my hair at home. Since I graduated cosmetology school and I have my license, I do have a lot of friends that have salons and they could do my hair, but sometimes I don't want to leave my house. And sometimes I just want to do it myself because it's easier and it's more convenient than going to a salon, and it's definitely cheaper. I'm just going to show you how I do it. It's super easy, super simple. As you can see, my ends kind of need it. They're looking a little dry. We're going to fix that. We're just going to give it a little trim and cut up some of my layers. They aren't layers actually, they're just dead pieces from me dyeing my hair that are now shorter that I treat like layers, and I trim them like layers because if I never trimmed them then they would break off and they'd die, which you don't want. So I'm just going to show you how I do it all, and I have some face framing as well. You can kind of see they're getting a little longer. We're just going to trim all those up. First thing you're going to need is obviously some shears. These are mine. They're 01163 Viper shears, and of course a clip and some water or some way to wet your hair. You could shower before. I usually like to shower after, but that's up to you. And also make sure that your hair is fully brushed through before you get it wet, just so you make sure that you're not ripping out your hair or damaging it more. I'm just gonna go ahead and get my hair wet off of camera, and I'm just gonna spray it with this water bottle. I got it off of Amazon. I love it. Just continuously sprays. They're the best. I just wanted to mention, make sure that your hair is evenly saturated if you are using a spray bottle, just because if some pieces are dry and some pieces are wet, then they will cut at different lengths. You need to make sure that it's all fully saturated before you begin cutting. So now that my hair is very evenly saturated, I am good to start cutting. I'm first off just going to section it. I'm just going to take a little clip. This is another thing you need that I forgot to mention, but I'm just going to go ahead and section off underneath the ear right there. Just going to flip it up like this. And then I'm going to split this section into two straight down the back. My wet brush, and just brush it very softly. Make sure that there's no tangles in it. I'm going to take a comb and my shears, and I'm just going to make sure that this is very straight, and I'm going to pull it as straight as I possibly can, straight down. Now you can see that I have these little ends isolated, and I can just go ahead with my shears and cut them straight, just like that. Just making sure that I'm keeping it very straight all the way down. Keep my head straight up instead of tilting it towards it. As you can see, I have those ends. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off, and cut the same amount off that you cut on both sides so that they're even, as you can see. And since you pulled it straight, they will be even in the back as well. You need to make sure that you pull them straight and don't tilt your head at all, and make sure it's a straight cut. Now I took down another section, just sectioned at my temples this time, and I'm just going to do the same thing, but this time you now have a guide. So you don't want to do the whole section at a time, you just want to do part of it. But you need to make sure to include some of your guide. So I'm going to do this back section first because that's where my guide is. You just want to pull down your hair very straight and find your guide. I only have a little bit of it here. I can see those little hairs right there. That's where I cut last time, and so I need to cut right there at that guide. And then that will make sure that everything on my head is all the exact same length. So let's just do that again with this. Sometimes it can be hard to find your guide. If you need to do some looking or you need to grab less hair, then that is always the best way to go rather than guessing. So for me, I can see my guide right there, and just make sure that your head is staying straight up. You aren't angling, and you're cutting straight. Your guide point, and then cut. And then It's always best to check again if you miss any hairs and ensure that it's super straight and there's nothing behind your ear that's hiding. Just go ahead and cut. See how I have a couple that are a little longer even though I just cut this? That's what happens when you miss a couple of hairs or they get caught up in something. So just make sure to do that a couple times and go over each section a couple times, and now you can see that this is a very straight cut and the line is very nice. So now let's just repeat on the other side. And if you can, make sure to look in a mirror, and you can usually tell that they are very even. And for me, this is the last section because I do not have the thickest hair. So depending on how thick your hair is, you may need to do many sections. You do need to make sure that your part is exactly where you want it to be when you style it or anything. If you switch it up, then it doesn't matter as much, and I would probably just place it in the middle. So we're going to just do the same thing and use those ends as a guide. Face framing pieces, which I'm going to show you next. First, I start out with grabbing the section that I do face framing. For me, I do it about this big. I don't know if you could see that. I just part right in front of my ear. Do the same thing I've been doing, making sure to keep it pretty straight. Instead of keeping my fingers straight, I angle them like this, as you can see, and then I point cut them. And I just make sure to get all the ends. But those are a lot more healthy now that I have just done that little trim. Now for the last thing that I do during my haircuts is I give myself some layers and I trim up those pieces that are a lot shorter just on top. So let me show you how I do that. Make sure your hair is split in the middle again and all your hair is pulled completely forward. You have nothing in the back. I don't cut this front section that we just cut because that is already exactly how I want it. So then I go to the next section behind it and I pull this straight up from my head at an angle like this. And I do the same thing that I've been doing with my fingers right behind the comb. And I go ahead and trim these at an angle. I don't go straight up at where my fingers left off. I do not go straight up like this or else you're gonna be cutting off some length. So instead I kind of do an angle like that. Just chop off those very top pieces and do an angle. Now I do that section again and I do a higher section, so I take off some of that bottom part for my head and I stop where these shortest pieces stop and I just go ahead and point cut that. And now I do that around my entire head.